Great. So it's 7 o'clock, and it's the first Wednesday, so let's kick off the Bennington School District Board of Directors meeting, please. First, we have a few adjustments to make to the agenda, please, that I would like a motion to approve. So a few things. One is to remove the principal reports, please. We're going to be hearing from our principals tonight about their plans, and so rather than have a duplication of things, we're going to cut the item number 5, which is the educational matters. We have an executive session already built into the agenda, and as it notes, it's to discuss the superintendent and in accordance with the evaluation policy. There is another employee-related reason that we'll be moving into executive session, so I'm hoping we can add that, as well as moving into executive session as afforded by subsection 1313A7, which is to discuss the academic records or suspension or discipline of students. So we'll be doing that. We need to add a committee report, so to add the Food Services Committee under item number 7, please. And also we'll after the committee reports, we need to vote to approve the staff support contract, which was ratified today. So if I could please have a motion to amend the agenda as I just outlined. Thank you, George. And I have a second. Thank you, Merity. Any discussion on that? Very good. So the agenda is, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. So it is amended as stated. So we'll move into public comments. Just a reminder before we start, the public comments are just that, comments, and it's not a question and answer session. So when you approach the mic, please state your name and where you live, please. So when Lori Mulhern comes up, she's going to say, I'm Lori Mulhern.
Got it. Hope we get it right. Hi there, I'm Lori Mulhern, resident of Bennington. I have a couple of questions for the board, and I'll give them to you, and maybe a couple of statements as well. First of all, is Act 46, as we all know, that's coming up, and there's been a lot of bantering back and forth on pros and cons of it. And I'm just hoping that regardless, whatever the outcome is, that it works for the benefit of all, because I have a lot of concerns no matter which way we go as to our effectiveness in bringing up students' performance levels, as well as successful graduation of students, including those that may or may not have disabilities, which you've all heard, so I won't go into that. But I have a couple of concerns, one of them being on item number 6, the transportation policy. That policy there, I've tried to address many times at policy committee meetings in regards to its lack of oversight. It also makes references back to the contract, and I have also made requests that the contract be changed in and of itself, and I have sent these requests to both Rick Pembroke, to previous superintendents. I believe I also sent it to Mr. Coquine, I sent it to Leon Johnson, and it's regarding the only requirement that we have in our contract that exists now for special needs students is that the size of the buses. It relates nothing to the welfare of the children that have special needs, the requirement for bus aides or bus drivers to take a course on transporting those with disabilities. And Mr. Murphy, I believe you and I spoke some time ago, a couple weeks ago, regarding how the needs of those students are conveyed to the bus drivers and the bus aides to ensure that these students are transported in accordance with their IEPs, because we still have a lot of vagueness surrounding that. There's no administrative regs regarding that. And also, that brings my attention to the reference in that policy that states that IEP teams will refer to the SVSU Special Education Manual. I have requested this document. Mr. Coquine has informed you that it doesn't exist, and yet here it is referenced in the policy. So, again, this is the third or fourth time requesting a copy of that document, because I'm a member of an IEP team. So that's a couple of things. The other thing I have is regards to how Act 46 is going to work as far as oversight of grants and things like that have been given to each independent school. And is that control or that monitoring and that grant, I guess, what do you call it when you have to meet those requirements, is that going to be maintained at the school level, or is that going to be conveyed to the unified district, like meaning central office? I was just curious how that was going to work, because it wasn't really clearly outlined. And the other question I have is on the student enrollment data sheet. I'm a little confused, which isn't the first time. On here, it mentions that we had, in other programs, at MEUMS, we had 31 students, and then at the high school, we had 40. This is just last school year. So we went from 107 students in those two alternative programs to 36. Now, this is exactly 71 students, which, if you total NAUMS from 2016-17 and the high school's amount, equals 71 students. So what I'm curious about is what happened to those students? How were they reclassified? Is it not another program now? Did they go somewhere else? Where are these students? So, and I would hope that you would be asking the same question, because these are MEUMS, and so these have got to be part of ours. So I'm just asking you, where did these 71 students go? And I think that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comments? All right, hearing none. We're going to move right into our presentation, really the meat of the evening. So this is a presentation on the annual progress review, and we're going to have Dr. Leap, we're going to have Ms. Boudreau, we're going to have BSD principals stepping up and speaking to us, please.
I think they're going to use that.
Oh, that's your that one is on. Did you stick yours? Does it have a laser? Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. So it's right underneath the green. There it is. Okay, well, this is it looks really good.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us this evening, and I think that we have worked together with the principals and with the superintendent and with Mr. Murphy on preparing a presentation for you tonight that shows some of the progress that has been made and some of the great potential that is being seen throughout the district. We really tried to present this year in a more global sense to provide a context for where are the strategies working in our SVSU and how are we getting schools to help improve student achievement everywhere. So we have some slides for you to present some of the data that we have and some of the tools that we are offering to our schools to accomplish those instructional strategies. So what we are working under at this time is the ESSA, which is Every Student Succeeds Act. The state of Vermont has their own version of that plan. ESSA itself is a federal program, and it is what the Vermont state plan has to align with. But Vermont has actually submitted its own plan, which has been accepted. And what they hope to do is prioritize support for the neediest students and to prepare students for our economy and to frame proposals that are affordable and can be implemented and maintained. And part of that plan are the continuous improvement plans that each school and each SU is creating. This is sort of a transition year while we are creating those plans so that all plans are done in a consistent way and they are clearly focused on goals that are evidence-based and provide learning strategies and resources for all schools to use. So the real purpose is identification of goals that are aligned with our educational quality standards, using data-informed decisions in all that we do, and developing teams to really look at that to support our most vulnerable students.
So I'm Laura Boudreaux, I'm the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and this slide is to remind you that in our district we are working together. Every school is required to have a multi-tiered system of support. So you've seen the triangle before where we have a balanced approach between academics, behavior, and social emotional learning. And all of our curriculum teams in our district are working under Act 77. That's the guidance that we're using to develop our real focus on what we want students to know and be able to do, and then also our assessment system, which answers the question, how will we know if they have it? We also, every school has an educational support team, that's our problem-solving team, that we can support schools and teachers in looking at individual students. So in last spring, our students took the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, and it was administered between March and May. And what you have in front of you is the district perspective of our district. It's a reminder that it's a summative assessment. It's one assessment given on a couple of days once during the year. And it measures our students against the standards that the state has adopted, which are the Common Core State Standards for math. And then you also have the overview for English Language Arts as well. And again, it's the district perspective.
So this slide is a slide that shows, it's a way to look at the data. It's the data from the previous slides on math and English Language Arts. What we tried to focus on was what has the response been to the improvement strategies that are being developed in the SVSU. So it's exciting to see that, oops, I'm sorry, I'm learning this clicker here, that some schools where these have been implemented, the strategies that are data-based and looking at student progress monitoring and adjusting instruction for students, you can really start to see that little bubble of success that's coming up here and the improvements that are being made. Also, in Monument School, these strategies have been implemented for, I would say, almost 5 years now, under the leadership of Donna Pauley, which has really shown significant growth and achievement levels for the students. So you can see where these are being implemented, that there is success coming up. There is a real level of success that we're looking forward to. The pink areas are areas that we find are a little bit behind in development, and so we're looking at those and supplying our coaches for those areas in all the schools. We offer coaching in using data and in math strategies and really looking closely at instructional methods that are evidence-based and successful for students. And so you can see in those pink areas that there is starting to be improvement, and we're bringing up the levels of instruction through the resources that we have in the SVSU.
So as the state develops our accountability system, we are preparing that graduation rate is going to be part of that system. So we're going to pass out a handout that as we're learning about this way. So as we're learning about graduation rates, we're giving you, the second page of the document we're giving you has the glossary that the state has provided us with information about graduation rate that defines the columns that you see in front of you. We often focus on the four-year cohort graduation rate, which right now is at 84.47%. We also are preparing that one of the indicators that the state is going to build into our accountability system is attendance. So the data you have in front of you is the district perspective of attendance using our own student management system, which is Infinite Campus, and this is an average of the information you received at board meetings over the course of last year.
This is just an example of some of the tools that we have provided to all schools and school leaders and their leadership teams to start to look really closely at data and looking at student assessments in many ways, and especially this part right here shows, and I have a little close-up of that, of all the data that is represented in that chart for all the students. This is just artificial data that we're showing you for an example, because this would be very confidential information. These are names of students. These are all made-up names of students. But it shows how we have color-coded the norms of how each student is doing according to their attendance, their behavior data, their MAP scores, FastBridge scores, and SBAC data, so that when teams sit down together, they can work collaboratively to find instructional strategies and methods that might help students who are falling behind or need a little extra help in certain areas. This chart here is more about monitoring progress over time, and with the assessments that we have, teachers are able to use them over time and look closely at students, especially those who are not meeting their proficiency levels at grade level, and then they can monitor the progress of students. I know here at Monument they use that very consistently as a team and have for the 5 years, and that the progress that they are making here is really a result of that and the leadership and the commitment of the team. Then down here on the bottom is a piece that we have that shows where students have been in past years and how we can look at that in terms of how students' results are developing. Well, that doesn't really show very clearly, does it?
Yeah, it's a little dark.
Yeah. I think it's in your handout, though. I just wanted to share this. All of our schools, our school leaders and our staff members are working very hard to make the changes that we are implementing through the state of Vermont and our new standards. It's a process, and as I'm saying, that it happens over time. You can see here that this is kind of it's a common reaction to change, that immediately people feel that their values are shifted and they don't like change. I think that we can all admit to ourselves that it's not our favorite thing, especially when we're used to doing things in one way, that the first reaction is shock and denial. And then it moves on to anger and fear about, why do I have to change the way I'm doing things? And I don't want to. And they're afraid of having their knowledge questioned. And then gradually there is an acceptance and a commitment to the changes that are made when they start to see that they're working. And then you can see that the positive attitude and the positive growth of students happens as people are able to be committed to those values and those changes that are going to help students be more successful.
So as we now move into the district and is required to have a continuous improvement plan, we worked with our administrative team and directors over the course of about 6 months to create the district level plan. So we're just going to highlight the 6 overarching goals and give you an example of an action step. The district continuous improvement plan is a 3-year plan that takes us to 2020. Each school this year is building a continuous improvement plan based on the district plan. So what you have in front of you is goal 1 and 2. Goal 1 is about leadership routines and systems. And one example of that, again, is our leadership team that's composed of administrators and directors. And we sit together 3 times a year and review district level data and use each other as resources to problem solve how to support each other in moving student achievement along. Goal 2 is about tiered instruction, and an example of tiered instruction is after our data review last spring, as an admin team, we recognized that there was something that we wanted to look closer at with 5th grade and math. And as a result, this year, we're implementing, using our district-level math coach, Pat Conway, and our SDSU data coach, Melissa Senecal, and they are working with fifth grade teachers around the district in their classrooms at collaboration time to provide coaching support, not only in instruction, but looking at the data to drive next steps. Goal 3 is all about professional learning. And again, after reviewing the data, we actually have a district-wide goal of literacy. And we recognize that we needed, through this needs assessment that we were required to complete pre-K through 12, that we need to start at the beginning. So K-1 teachers, again, during the year receive ongoing professional learning support by, we have a wide range of literacy experts in our district. There's on-site professional learning, and then they come together as a group over the course of the year. We also are providing our special educators and our interventionists with the year-long Wilson training. They signed up, it started this summer, and now they are on-site working with children using the skills that they've learned, and they're provided with a coach from Wilson to do that. Goal 4 is about assessment, and we showed you a snapshot of the dashboard that we are implementing this year. Melissa Senecal, our data coach, is training data members and data teams and leadership teams on how to use that dashboard, and we hope that it'll help with collaborative conversations. Goal 5 is about family engagement. A great example of a family engagement goal is as we continue to streamline our assessment system, and one part of that is standards-based reporting, we have attended open houses, specifically at the elementary level. We're holding parent nights at the middle and high school this year to engage parents in conversations about the shift in thinking at the elementary level. It's just slight changes in the standards we're reporting out. At the middle and high school, it's a shift to standards-based reporting. And goal 6 is all about high-quality staffing. And an example of an action step is our continued monitoring of our mentor-mentee program. We would like to ensure that every new teacher that comes into our district is supplied with the appropriate supports they need to be successful, which includes a peer, a mentor, and it also includes, we offer an ongoing training after school throughout the year, which is quite fun. I enjoy it. Meeting with new teachers and helping them collaborate with their peers to solve problems they're encountering as they move through the year. We're also revisiting our supervision and evaluation tool. So in a nutshell, that's an overview of the district-level continuous improvement plan, which has many other action steps, but they highlight some of the focuses for this year. We are turning this over to Dr.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to acquaint you with Molly Stark's school mission in the center part of the slide, and with qualifiers that give some context to our purpose and our direction. To simply provide opportunities for learners of all ages, at all stages, to reach their potential. And to be clear on that, we've indicated those qualifiers. What do we mean by that? And you can see that we're part of a greater community from the Agency of Education, SVSU, our own Bennington School District, our community, parents, and staff. And the opportunities fall under programs, practices, and personnel, professional development, and such features as extended day and extended school year experiences. And when we talk about ages, that's everyone from the youngest child in school to the oldest adult. If I'm not learning, it inhibits the development of everyone in the building. And the same is true for our staff. So the rich array of staff development activities that the district provides is essential fuel for our efforts. And we talk about stages, that's from the child who is struggling to someone with a gregarious appetite for learning, and everyone in between. And our target is really potential. It's not enough if someone is capable of achieving an A in a grade or a subject, and they settle for a B. you could make a case that that child is not being as successful as someone who's based on, for instance, some of our assessments, like the measures of academic progress, the MAPs. That gives, based on the test administered in the fall, it gives a projection for how that child is expected to perform in the spring. So while one child might receive a higher score in the spring, he may not or she may not have experienced the growth. So it's about potential measured as when achievement and ability meet. So that's important because it's a foundation for our school. The next slide refers to our expectations, and that's included in our positive reinforcement tickets that all members of the school community receive. I got one today. And it's very important that we can subscribe to this, because a school where children do not feel safe, or staff members, emotionally, socially, physically, a school where they don't feel that others are treating them with respect and kindness, a school where they're not responsible, cannot be a school that aspires to academic excellence. These attitudes, these characteristics are precursors to success in learning. This is the information in terms of our projected growth, that by the end of the school year, our learners in grades 3 through 5, using those MAPS tests that I referred to, the measures of academic progress, will have projected growth rates of 5 to 8%. 2 to 5% is considered as one school year of progress. So we are expecting to exceed that. We did this year, and we have raised our expectations. So it's actually 2 to 5% equate to one school year. We're looking at 5 to 8. It's what we have to do. It's what we need to do. It's what we want to do. Second bullet is we're looking at reducing risk levels. So that pyramid that Donna referred to that, and Laura mentioned a multi-tiered program. We have in the district, it's color-coded, where red are those who are at greater risk, yellow at moderate risk, and green who are not at risk. They are projected to be successful. We look at that in 3 different areas: behavior, social area, and academic. So what we're referring to is we expect that 10% of the learners who are in the red will advance to the yellow. In other words, reduce their risk. And similarly, 10% of the yellow will progress to the green. So we want to address those learners who are at risk, and we exceeded that goal this year. So we're expecting to shave an additional 10% off those levels. The third area is the area that we have struggled with, and we are underperforming, and that is the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, the SBACs. That's that one snapshot that Donna and Laura talked about, and that measures the whole year. We have, operating on the premise of SMART goals, which our district uses as a template for action plans. SMART, the acronym is SMART, means specific. The M is for measurable. The A is for achievable or attainable, and that's very important here. R is for relevant, and T is for timely. So as you can see, we have raised our, we want to see our SBAC scores rise to at least 29 to 35% of our learners in grades 3 through 5 will be proficient in math, and 33 to 37% will be proficient in English language arts. We bear a significant responsibility. It's one that our staff at Molly Stark does not take lightly. Just a review of simple statistics reveals that the Bennington School District cannot and will not reach higher levels if Molly Stark doesn't improve. We represent approximately 50% of all the learners in the BSD. And what that means mathematically is if 50% of those learners are underperforming, we are the anchor that weighs down the whole district. That puts us in a critical position because of the burden of numbers. And as I said, it's not a responsibility we accept lightly. As you can see, last year's goal, we had a goal of increasing by 2 to 5% the rate of growth, the average growth. And in math, we recorded a 5% in grades 3 through 5, 5.1% in reading in grades 3 through 5. So I want to emphasize that while we are not at where we need to be, we are making progress, and we expect that that 5% and 5.1% will be from 5 to 8%. And as I said, 2 to 5% represents a school year. We have to catch up. No one needs to tell us that. And I believe our staff is well positioned to accept that responsibility. The next graphs show the reason why we need to focus on a collective effort. And as we progress through these slides, you'll see what we're doing to do that. That's the spring 2017 SBAC in math. And you can see the legend to the upper right, the state, SVSU, and Molly Stark. The next slide is the English language arts. Similarly, we are underperforming. Now we move to academic goals. What are we going to do about it? So we collect a lot of data. Technology allows us to access, store, retrieve, and interpret data. And that's all well and good. So now we're at the point, so now what are you going to do? We've invested a lot of time and energy in areas that people might not reference related to academics. But it's my strong belief that the infrastructure at Molly Stark needed to adapt to promote our progress. So we've developed 2 significant changes in our infrastructure that I feel will bear progress every bit as much or more than if you bought us all new math and ELA books and you gave us the latest, greatest technology. We have a new master schedule that has uniform periods of time. We've gone from 30 minutes twice a week of physical education and 15 minutes in art and music and library once a week to every one of those subject areas 40 minutes. Furthermore, the team at each grade level shares the same common planning period every day. That involves a classroom teacher, 3 sections, 4th and 4th grade. In addition, each grade with a special ed teacher and an interventionist, so there are teams of people that have common planning period. We no longer have people stretched across multiple grades, which is complicated because the schedules weren't aligned. So that's to promote and increase communication and collaboration, and those are essential, because if you don't have that, you're undermining everything else you invest in our school. If you don't have that communication, the collaboration, and developing the team building that's so necessary, then you're wasting time in terms of professional development, textbooks, resources, and technology. Furthermore, we've relocated classroom assignments. Molly Stark, if you've been there, is an unusually shaped building, which I'm sure each of those additions over the years have made sense, but collectively they don't now. It's a building on one floor that's spread out, that has impact on human interactions, because it's so spread out, so we've made some moves, and I want to point out that both of these changes in infrastructure emerged from our shared decision-making team, which is comprised of parents, professional staff, support staff, and one administrator. So they spent last year looking, listening, and learning, and promulgated these changes, which I think are the leverage needed to allow us to build on our successes on that growth of 5 and 5.1%. That's the heavy lifting. It's our expectation that this year, that boulder that once it's been dislodged will have momentum that will convey our progress. Continuing with general academic goals, we want to leverage increased achievement through instruction that's engaging, relevant, and consistently reflective of best teaching practices. But we're also focused on those non-instructional factors that contribute to our academic improvement. And these are numbers that are very important as well. They include measures of attendance. In earlier slides, you saw our attendance was 94%. For September, it's been 96%. So we've gone from a 94% last year, and we expect to maintain that. We look at behavior referrals. Our school-wide information system, which the district uses to track discipline referrals, shows that this year, through the first 40 days of school, that we reduced discipline referrals by 20% compared to this time last year. And I should point out that last year's statistics were also at least 20% reduction in referrals from the previous year. We experienced last year a reduction in major violations by 50%. So we're looking at measures of producing and sustaining a school climate. That's why our shared decision-making team has provided a survey to all of our parents to solicit their input, their comments, and incorporate that into their efforts this year for that shared decision-making team to, again, help lift our overall results in academic assessments. It's important that we don't obscure the faces and feelings behind the facts and figures. When all is said and done, schools are and always will be a human service agency. Those the attendance data is not something that you can raise, nor can you raise academic performance by simply saying you need to come to school so you can improve SBAC. I don't think there's a child who wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to school today because I'm going to improve SBAC. Instead, what we've invested in, and the district has as well, with a multi-tiered program, that pyramid that acknowledges behavior and social elements, we want to make an environment where people feel that they're treated with dignity, respect, that there are accommodations made, that they want to come to school. That's how you get them into school. And between an increase in attendance and a decrease in discipline, you're increasing the instructional opportunities available to our learners. We will expand on professional development activities. The district is working on trauma-informed schools, and we addressed in our professional development activities, including our faculty meetings, work on serving children of poverty. I had previously mentioned our shared decision-making group. They work parallel to our leadership team in identifying and addressing perceived leverage points. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Mujitz, for that great news. It's good to hear about one of our sister schools. So I'm going to share some information now about where we've been and where we're going at Monument Elementary School. As you can see, and I think and believe you're familiar with our expectations at our school and our vision. We are a school that strives for academic excellence, behavior, social competence within a unified community to which everyone belongs. Please remember that these aren't just about our children and our staff members. This is about our school community. So these are the same expectations that we expect from our parents and our families when they cross our threshold. And our hope is that they carry it within our community as they leave our threshold at our school. Not quite sure why that's happening, but I think I know.
Mr. Crew taught me that.
So moving on, I'm going to do a little review of where we've been. We have a continuous improvement plan. This is the last year of our 3-year plan at Monument. So this is the plan and the steps that you actually saw last year when we provided this information. So we were projecting that by this past June of 2017, grades 3 through 5 would meet a projected growth of that 2 to 5%, which equates to 1 year of learning. And we are basing that on our measures of academic progress, our assessment that we use 3 times a year with our students. And then also that the proficiency of that would look like 68 to 71% of our students in grade 3 through 5 being proficient in math, and 61 to 64% proficient in English and language arts. So I'm going to show you how we did with those 2 goals. So right there, when we reflect back on the 2 to 5%, our math growth rate was in there. It was 4.3. We would have loved to seen 5, but clearly we didn't meet that goal. And when you look at the percentage of children, it might equate to 1 of our students in our school. And reading growth rate at 5%. So we're pleased with it, but that doesn't mean we're finished. We have to keep moving. Then for SBAC, as you can see, state, SVSU, and school comparison, we're again pleased with what our students have done. We exceeded the state average in 3rd grade and also in 5th grade. But we also are aware now we have some work to do within that 4th grade. So we're doing a lot of work in our collaborative teams. We're looking at that data, and we're looking to see where we need to make some specific improvements in instruction. And this is our English language arts. Again, in all 3 grades, we exceeded the state average. We're very pleased with it. It has to do with the work that we have been really focusing on these past, and this is our 5th year of working together as a team. Our collaborative time, focusing on our data, focusing on our instruction, and working closely together as a staff. And then we look at our grade 2. In our 3-year plan, we had a focus, our current 2nd grade this year. This is our last year. We projected when they came in as kindergartners that we want 90% of those students currently in 2nd grade to be proficient, to be measured by the FastBridge, Measures of Academic Progress, school-wide informational system, and our student risk screener scale. We're looking for 90% of them to be proficient. We're on track. We're feeling confident that we're going to meet that goal by June of 2018. And you can see right there that currently, this is from our fall screening process, that currently our student risk screening scale shows us that we've got those students internalizing 70% proficient, externalizing factors 91, our FastBridge reading is 65, and our FastBridge mathematics is 78%. Please take into consideration, we're also feeling that a part of this might be some regression over the summer, so we're eager to see what our winter benchmark looks like. And then our hope for the spring is that we're going to be able to do the work, and those kids those learners will see that they're 90% proficient. It's a lofty goal, but we're working diligently. Moving on for this year, what we're looking at again by June 2018, that they're going to meet that goal of 90%, being proficient in that second grade. Our students in grades 3 through 5 will make growth equated to 1 year, 2 to 5%, and that equates to a proficiency goal and percentage of 51 to 54% in math and 72 to 75% in language arts on the SBAC, Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium. So here's our action steps. This is what we propose to do in order to meet those goals. We are going to continue with our data and school leadership team. We're going to be creating also a new continuous improvement plan, but we're monitoring that past plan. This is our last one. And then we are going to be conducting a needs assessment to foster the development of our new one, which will be a 3-year plan, but looking at that data very closely, getting that input, and creating those new goals and that 3-year plan. Development of individual action plans for students. When we look at our screener, our student risk screening scale of social emotional development, and we're providing those students with the tiered instruction of social skills program, our new one, which is Connect with Kids. We're seeing that the instructional component every week in classrooms, new lessons, reinforced daily by classroom teachers and the staff in its entirety, has been quite helpful. Along with our positive behavior interventions and supports, we this year created some newness around our program. We are in our second year of Honey Drops. We, of course, seek input from our children. What is their desire? What do they want to see as a response to their demonstrating those great skills and expectations in our school? So that's exciting to see, and it's exciting to see them excited about what they do. Development and responding to our SMART goals. We have created our SMART goals in English language arts already. We've looked at our benchmark from the fall. We've used our time as a staff. We just recently had a professional learning day. That time was spent in teaming and looking at grade levels and creating SMART goals for those classrooms and where we need to go. Continuing our professional learning on trauma-informed classrooms. Dave Melnick has spent some time with our staff and a core team. It has already been helpful. We have created some looked at case studies of children in our school, and we've already seen a benefit of the strategies that he has shared with us and our team and implemented them. So already we've moved forward with that knowledge and professional learning. And that helps. We are changing our methods of interacting and responding to children who are impacted by trauma, and we know those numbers are increasing. We're seeing those children every day in our school. And also providing an interventionist/coaching model to support professional learning at the Tier 1 level of math instruction. That was in response to our data that you saw. We didn't quite make the mark that we wanted to make the mark in our SBAC in 4th grade. So what we did was we looked back at that data, adjusted, and we're already implementing a coaching model of one of our interventionists who's working half-time intervention and half-time coaching, collaborating with teachers, looking at first-tier instruction, classroom instruction, and what is occurring in the area of math. And so now I'd love for you to hear.
That's fine. Can you just
Yes, I
turn that
will.
over to me?
Sure.
So I'm really envious of the historical context that my colleagues can use in looking at the slideshow. 2 months into this work, it's been really clear to me and my school leadership team that we have a lot of work to do, and we need to revision and re-explore how to move forward in the future. So we have a mission statement, a number of mission statements that I've discovered in a number of different documents, and I've worked to at least try to create the vision and expectations moving forward that perhaps aren't already there. So Bennington Elementary School seeks to foster and provide behavioral and social competence leading to academic excellence for all students in our school community. You're going to be hearing a lot of mirroring of goals and some of the language that my colleagues have used, but each school is unique, and you will hopefully hear some of those unique differences in our plan. We create a safe, kind, responsible, and respectful learning environment in which everyone is a learner. Once again, what Dr. Mugitz referred to is that the adults in the community need to be part of this as well, and where all will feel a sense of belonging. And then we have integrated into this some of the proficiency-based future thoughts about student voice, strengths, interests, and student leadership promotes local and global citizenship, and family and community engagement in learning serves as the foundation for our success. So that is our path that we are going to explore in the years to come. The growth in looking at last year's, and once again, not being part of this, it's really a great learning experience to me to see how far we need to go. The math growth rate last year was 3.8%, and our reading growth rate 2.4%. You heard Donna Cawley speak to you that 2.5% growth will be equivalent to 1 year's growth. So you can see that that in reading in particular, that's an area that we need to explore in terms of future growth for our students. Once again, a visual of where students achieved this past year on the SBAC. Grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, all needing to be, we are really well aware of what may have been the underlying causes or factors involved in these performances. Dr. Mugitz also pointed out that readiness for learning and some of the factors affecting, as well as attendance. Bennington Elementary last year was 92.4% attendance rate, which is fairly equivalent to actually the middle school and high school. It was the lowest in the elementary schools. So attendance is an area that will need to be explored as part of our overall school improvement plan. We also are, well, I'll get into how we're going to be addressing this as we get further into the slideshow, but we have plans for that. The ELA piece, you can see, once again, grade 5 did fairly well. Grade 4, we have lots of information on that grade level, and grade 3 also needs a booster. So this is our beginning point in working with our school teams, our interventionists, and our special educators this year. We also set goals for math and English language arts, not to sound redundant, but the 2.5% in reading and math as measured by the MAPS, or the measure of academic progress. So, and also including K2 in this projection, we're very well aware that the grade levels that precede 3 through 5 are going to be a significant part of our 3 to 5 year plan. So we really project that 10% of learners in grades K to 2 will experience an increase in performance levels in both reading and math as measured by the FastBridge assessments. Dr. Mugitz pointed out that that's color-coded in its analysis at the end, and you move yellow to green and red to yellow so that you can easily see if you're making progress. By June of 2018, we project Actually, even though those numbers look fairly low, they will represent a fairly significant increase based on the data that we have right now. 25 to 30% of students in grades 3 to 5 will be proficient in math, and 35 to 40% of students in grades 5 proficient in ELA as measured by the SBAC. Some of the steps that we're going to be taking in math and ELA, and we've already started these, to establish and maintain the fidelity of a weekly EST called the Educational Support Team, a very significant piece of school structure or the MTSS model that helps you identify students so that they don't fall through the cracks. We have a number of students who will be referred to these teams. We will monitor individual and groups of students in need of social, emotional, behavioral, and academic interventions and supports for learning. It's all-inclusive. It is a fairly deep process in terms of steps and progress monitoring, and we're resurrecting that with fidelity this year. We want to plan and activate continued and sustained staff training with the trauma-informed school-based learning team to influence shifts in classroom and other school learning environments. Very significant piece of the work that we'll need to do. We will support this work with the PBIS trainings and Connect Kids social skills learning curriculum, as well as explore some other possible programs for students in Tier 2 and 3. We'll utilize district, school, and classroom assessments to determine every student's level of proficiency in math and reading and design instruction to close the significant gaps in student performance. That's a giant piece, but each student will need to be looked at individually, and those gaps are significant, in some cases 2 and 3 years below grade level. We'll provide continued professional development in English language arts and math to support improved instruction. That's an ongoing goal for all of our schools. And who's going to share the resources? Is that something that you want us to do? We can do this.
So all together?
Yeah.
These are the resources that we're hoping you will all support us as sister schools in Bennington School District. We're looking to provide some supplemental instruction materials to include technology and web-based programming to support the range of differentiated learners within each classroom and grade level. So we have a wonderful opportunity to progress monitor our students when they're receiving Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. So with this kind of material, we then are going to be exploring the progress monitoring tools for our Tier 1 core instruction, which is just as important as those students who need the Tier 2 and Tier 3. All of our children receive Tier 1 instruction. But this is another opportunity for us trying to improve what we are doing and how we're collaborating and how we're looking at data for all of our learners. Increased family and community engagement and tools to promote a network of understanding and education around student learning and its importance for our children's future. It's just a continuation of what we have been talking about. It's not about an individual school, it's about school community. And our community involves our children, our learners, their families, their parents, their guardians, their extended families, our community partners outside of school. This is not just about what happens when they walk through our door. We need the support from everyone and our community agencies. So making sure that we have that engagement with all. And we're reaching out and we're asking them to also come in to support our children. Assessments moving forward.
To close and to bring everything back together, I'm going to bring it back to the district perspective. and give you some insight into some very recent information provided by the Agency of Education about other pieces to the accountability system that they're building. The first is that the Smarter Balanced assessment has been given at grades 3 through 8 and 11, and this spring they are going to move the 11th grade piece to 9th grade, which means that becomes more of a field test again. They're looking at questions that they're looking at the 11th grade questions and the 8th grade questions and trying to design 9th grade questions. But they assure us that there'll be something ready for the 9th graders in the fall. We are pleased to say that we've been teaching to the next generation science standards for the last 3 years, and the assessment that the state has asked us to do has been measuring the grade level expectations that we don't teach to anymore. So we are pleased that Vermont has partnered with Rhode Island, and we're in a consortium together, and they are developing the science assessment that will be given this spring in grades 5, 8, and 11, which they're suggesting right now will be 2 one-hour sessions. Again, that will be assessing the standards we've been teaching to. And the third bullet, and the one that's raising lots of conversation, is around the new physical education assessment. As part of the accountability system, the state is also looking at the whole child and feels strongly that physical education would be a great area to do an assessment to when we're looking at the whole picture. And being married to a phys ed teacher, who's very happy about that choice, knowing that that's going to be part of the system. So we hope that we've given you the district perspective, and then each school has had an opportunity to share their stories as well, and we'd like to open the floor to any questions you might have. Jackie?
I noticed that both Bennington Elementary and Molly Stark have significant numbers of students who are special ed. And of these special ed students, as I understand it, only 1% take an alternative testing. Is that true?
The goal is that with the state assessments, that the goal is to try to get as many kids as possible to take the assessment that they're providing us. And there are instances where, and Wendy's not here to speak to that right now, can petition for an alternative assessment that still is assessing the standards that we teach to.
But the number still is 1%.
I am right now going to say I'm not going to say that. I'd rather check and get back to you to make sure, verify that number.
My other question concerns students who are at or below the 80th marker in IQ. Normal IQ is 90 to 110.
Okay.
Because those students will stagnate in their learning, just as students who are at the 90th IQ, they don't make measurable increases. So I'd like, desegregated data showing those numbers and performances at those numbers.
Okay. So we're going to make a note of what you're requesting. Okay, so you've had 2 questions that we're going to follow through on. You're curious about the percentage for the alternative assessment, and you're also curious about, I'm trying to think of a global, you're curious about the assessment reaching all kids, if I put it in a global.
Well, actually, no. I'm concerned about all tests, and how many don't have to take it or take alternative testing. Because when you look at the numbers, sometimes it's skewed because of the percentages of people who are fall into the special ed categories. Yes, it's true that they can have some support during their testing, but if they can't read, if they can't do other things, are they all tested with maps,
Yeah, so number one, yes, we assess our students. That's definitely part of our local comprehensive assessment system, and in grades 3 through 10, we use maps with all of our students that we're able to. The other thing, the Agency of Education on their student report have disaggregated if you're curious just about the SBAC data, they've done that work for us. So you can go right to their website, to their reports tab.
But
And our
they
teachers just
they
right there.
didn't enumerate the numbers of percentages of students who did not have to take it, nor did they enumerate the numbers of students at the 70th IQ and below.
So we will make a note of that, Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just also add something? You know, your statement about children who may have a difference in cognitive level. We progress monitor all of our students throughout all of the schools. It does not matter if you are an identified student or not. We still expect growth. It may not be growth at the same pace, but we progress monitor all of our children, identified and not, and we expect growth for all of them.
And that-
Hoping that would be helpful to you.
And the MAP test, the measures of academic progress, is based on growth, and that's why I emphasize growth, so we don't discount learners. At Molly Stark, we have 4.8% of our learners are in the New England Child Center's program for autism spectrum disorder, and they are tested whenever possible, whether it's SBAC or FastBridge and MAPS. But the key in response to your question is that we want to see growth for all of our learners. And it gets back to that simple definition of potential is when their achievement meets their ability.
And if I also could add that all of the students do participate in the test. If you're not participating in SBAC, there is a very specific criteria from the state that you must meet for that child to have an alternative assessment. And so I can just speak to Monument. All of our children participate. There are accommodations that are very specific, and you must be trained, and you must be certified in order to be a part of that assessment. But all of our children do participate in that, and all of our children do take MAPS.
And we only have a
Identify
few
or not.
exceptions, and that's with the NEC program. But those NEC scores, regardless of where the child resides, fall under Molly Stark. So it doesn't matter whether they come from Pownell or Bennell or Monument. They're Molly Stark's responsibilities.
I appreciate that. I would just like to see the reporting
Yes.
in a different way. So, because, you know, I mean, it could be that there's considerably great growth in both of the schools that we look at now that doesn't seem like there's a lot of growth. And because of the numbers of students who grow slower, we're not seeing that growth. So if we had a different type of data up here, we might see a different picture.
Jackie, I would just add, I'm sorry, Jackie, I just was going to add that a big shift in thinking when we're looking at test scores that I appreciate, and thank you for going back to the growth piece, is that there was a period of time where we were just looking, for example, at NECAP and just looking at in relationship to the standards we were teaching. And now what we are trying to do is report out both growth and the criterion-based assessment that's looking at our kids in relationship to their grade level standards. So that is, and I'm glad that you came back to that, it's really important because we definitely want to focus on that all of our kids are growing.
A question just along those lines,
Yeah.
because I'm not aware of how it works. When you speak to the data looking for growth
Yes.
from 2 to 5%,
Yes.
hopefully
Yes.
they'll fall within that.
Yeah.
Is that a realistic expectation for some students that may be on the spectrum, developmentally delayed,
Dealing with
things like
trauma.
that? So I think what Jackie's saying, or at least I think this is what I'm getting from what Jackie's saying, is if you have a student who has a developmental delay or is a spectrum disorder, and is there a way to carve out the data for the children who may not be able to manage 2 to 5% of growth in a school year? They're doing a fantastic job, they are growing, but possibly not at the 2 to 5% growth rate. So that it can make the data for lay people look like we're really not growing when we actually are growing and we're doing quite well.
Yeah, so we to the best of our ability, we try to collect benchmark data 3 times a year
Right.
on all our children if we're able. That is our ultimate goal. And you are right, we're dealing with human beings, we're dealing with children, so there are periods of time and blocks of time where there could be children that are dealing with things that might affect that. Please know that we also have, we have other assessments that are available to us that we have, the next program and specifically has tools that they also use to measure, to make sure growth is happening. We have unique situations again.
I just
But
need a
hear what you're
separate
saying.
column to carve it, so that we can look at the data as a global number, but then know that this data here, there is growth, but it's not necessarily 2 to
Yeah.
5%.
The other thing that's hard for us is sometimes that's a really small population of students, and we can't report that out. The state provides guidelines for us if we're dealing with a really small population of children.
For privacy purposes?
Privacy purposes, because if you have a really small number, then it becomes identifiable. So again, it's really hard to, I totally hear what you're saying, and we're sitting here being cheerleaders for our children and telling you that we're looking for that as well. We might not always be able to show you, especially if the population of students is really small, that that's happening, but it's definitely something for us to think about. And so thank you for bringing that to our attention. Jackie?
I was looking on page 2 and pink and blue. And I was wondering why Molly Stark and Bennington doesn't have pink. Embedded ongoing coaching started fall.
The coaching is available at Molly Stark and Bennell. Coaches need to be invited in to be working with teachers in the school. So, because the coaches are teachers themselves, they are not administrators. So you will see on the bottom half, Molly Stark does have coaching in ELA. And they have an in-house person who is a titled staff member who offers coaching in English language arts and works with teachers, looking at data and meeting with their collaboration teams. But they have not invited the coach in significantly to affect the performance in mathematics, but we're working on it.
The math coordinator is a mentor for one of our teachers with the express purpose that that would increase her visibility and thereby encourage staff while she's there to avail themselves of that. It is peculiar, a bit of an oddity in that many districts, the central office staff are not in the same contract as the teachers. So essentially you have people who are in the same contract and therefore wouldn't be supervisory. And so it's incumbent upon me at Molly Stark to welcome and encourage the math coordinator to come out and have the teachers take advantage of that opportunity.
Any other questions about the presentation? Okay, thank you very much. So item number 3, finance. The treasurer's reports, as well as the corporate resolution and the special education para move were all included in the board packet.
On the corporate resolution,
Please, yep.
there's been a change in the bank, and so we have a document that you have to come, the chair has to come in and sign, so we need the board to authorize you to come in and sign the corporate authorization resolution form.
Could I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Jackie. Could I have a second? Thank you, other Jackie. Any discussion on that? Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor of empowering the chair to sign the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? It passes. Thank you for that.
Can you ask what C is?
Get that? Yes, absolutely. Jim, can you speak to that, please?
You have a special needs student that transferred into the district from another community, from Shaftesbury, and they require a one-on-one, so you now have to absorb that in your budget. So even though they are an SU employee, it's going to transfer from Shaftesbury budget to yours. It won't affect you immediately. It'll actually appear more in your 2020 budget. You're building the FY18, but it'll be fund balance rolling over, so but wanted to make you aware of it.
Okay. Jackie, does that answer the question you had? Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, item number 4. Any questions about the items in the consent agenda?
So moved.
All right. Thank you, Jackie and George. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Very good. Any opposed? It passes. Thank you. We've removed the educational matters, and now, so moving on to policy. So we have a number of policies. We'll take them one at a time. We have policy number 1100, the fixed asset policy, and just for noting it, it was originally warned on June 7th by this board. So could I have a motion to adopt 1100, please? Thank you, Jackie Kelly. Thank you, George. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Fantastic. That is adopted. The second one, number 3100, the transportation policy, warned on 8/8 by this board. Could I have a motion to approve that, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Jackie. Could I have another, please? A second? Thank you, George. Any discussion on approving this policy? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Motion passes and is adopted. Policy number 3115, the prevention of conflict of interest in procurement, which was warned by this board on June 7th. So I have a motion to approve. Thank you, Jackie. Approve. Second. Thank you, George. Any discussion on 3115? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting it, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And it is adopted. Thank you. The fourth, number 4121, the policy regarding travel reimbursement, warned by this board on June 7th. Could I have a motion to adopt, please? So moved. Who wants it? We'll give it to George. And seconded by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion on 4121? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Fantastic. We've adopted 4121. Number 4327, the Family Medical Leave Act. This was warned by the board on August 8th. Could I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary.
We just assumed, George.
Can I have a second, please? Second. Thank you, George. Any discussion on approving 4327? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. That is adopted. And the last one, 5411, the Comprehensive HIV and Bloodborne Pathogens Policy, warned by this board on May 3rd. Could I have a motion to approve? So moved. Thank you, George. Could I have a second? Second. Thank you, Chayla. Any discussion on 5411? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we have adopted it. Very good. The reason I noted when those were warned was just to sort of highlight how long it can take to get a policy passed through. A little bit later in executive session, we'll be talking about the superintendent evaluation policy, and I just noted that it took more than 2 years to pass that policy. So we're going to hear from Act 46 in a little bit, but that is one element of a merger that needs to be spoken about, just how it can certainly help to increase efficiencies in how the board does its work. So that's it for policies. We're going to move on to item number 7, the committee and board meeting reports. And Act 46 is the first one. So I'm going to turn to Dan and hope that Dan can give us an update, please.
I'm sure as everyone knows, but the floor meeting regarding this vote is on November 6th at 6:45 for BSD. And the vote on the Act 46 merger proposal is November 7th, and folks can vote anytime they want between now and then. They can go down to their clerk's office and pick up absentee ballots and vote. There was a informational session at the Mount Anthony Union Auditorium led by Mr. Murphy. What date was that? October 26th.
Last Thursday.
Right? Last Thursday. Fairly well attended, lots of different districts represented, citizens represented from different districts, lots of questions, and I think it was a very informative meeting. Other than that, I guess I would note that we have folks on our school board running for director of that new board if it is formed. And I'm very happy to see that, because I think it's important if this new board is formed that there's continuity. And other than that, I would just urge everyone to inform themselves of the issues and vote on 7 or before.
Thank you, Dan. I just add, so there were nearly 80 people at one point at the forum, which I thought was great. And certainly, just to send our thanks to Senator Campion and Representative Miller, both of whom came out and helped to answer some questions. So that was very helpful. And just in general, there are a lot of hot feelings about the merger, to merge to not to merge, but everyone there conducted themselves with civility and kindness, and I thought it was very productive, for sure. So thank you for that, Dan. Moving on to the SVSU. Chayla, could you give us an update on that, please?
Sure. A lot of our meeting last week, we got a decent amount of that presentation here today, so I'm not going to necessarily rehash it, but we talked a lot about the assessments for our districts and the continuous improvement plan, and that was reviewed with us today. So that was a big portion of the meeting, and otherwise, I think it was business as usual, and no other major report outs that I can remember.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you for the SVSU. And Mary, you have a food service committee report for us.
Yes, we met on October 19th, and there were several things that were discussed. This was my first meeting of the food service, so I was kind of new to all of it. There was reviews of the menus for November and the procedures they go through to do that. Sharing tables, sealed items placed, whole foods for students. Okay, so students are allowed to share food as long as it's sealed, and that is district-wide, and there has been a change, so they are allowed to have a collective basket of sealed things, and fruit is included in that, which I thought was great because I really thought it was terribly wasteful in the past, and it is new. So they can give you a better idea of the parameters of that. They have some collection issues going on, and it has to do with adults within the district that had ran up tabs, and that's something that is being worked on and dealt with. There's some possible changes to the contract for food service, and Renee is looking into whether or not changes need to be made. Next meeting date will be emailed to me, and so we don't have another date set. And as an apology, I didn't add at the beginning of the meeting, the LICE committee tried to meet. We did not have a very good turnout, so we have rescheduled it for December 13th at 3 o'clock.
We're still soliciting to get people to commit to coming on that date. I think we've only had 2 so far.
We will
Bring up the word.
and that's it.
Thank you. All right, the added agenda item of voting to approve the staff support contract. Jim, could you tell us a bit about that, please?
It's been a long time coming. It was some language holdups between the education support negotiators and our negotiating team, actually between Norm Bartlett of NEA and Dina Atwood, who is an attorney with Stitzel, Page and Fletcher, particularly around language for bereavement time and a misunderstanding of what had been agreed to, and it took going back to Richard's minutes, which could identify when the discussion took place, and then a review of the video from that open negotiation, and we could come to an agreement on what the language should read. Okay. So the highlights of, I received around 4 o'clock today a text message from the president of the Education Support Unit that they had ratified the contract. That's why it's not on the agenda, because we didn't know whether that was going to happen. And the process, for those of you who knew, they ratify it first, and then we bring it to the boards for approval. Teachers' contract, we did a carousel meeting to approve the teachers' contract, so we could get that done. Because we're in a retroactive pay mode anyways for this, it didn't really make sense to hold a carousel meeting, so we will use the November meetings of all boards for approval. You're the first one. The highlights, it is a 2-year contract. As I mentioned, the pay will be retroactive. Health insurance really was a major part of the discussion. Plans similar to the offerings for teachers. The 4 plans, Platinum Gold, Gold CDHP, and Silver CDHP, which is consumer-driven health plan. We pay 86% of the premium for the support staff versus 80% for the teachers. no matter what plan they select for these employees, we only employee-only amount for the school year for all tiers of plans. So in other words, we're not paying family plans for educational support personnel who aren't year-round employees. Into the HRA, the employee has to put the first 5% into that account, and then we match from our savings. The board's savings will go into that account. Difference from the teacher's contract, that was a 10% contribution, but these are your lower paid employees. The board will cover the administration cost of the HRA, which will be about $3.45 a month per employee. But again, the savings in the plan, we see that this being cost neutral to all the districts at this point. And this goes into effect, this health insurance plan goes into effect January 1st of this year. So all the current plans stay in place. There was some changes to overtime language. Previously it said 35 hours, but some of our support staff don't work 35 hours, so it's all employees who are scheduled for 30 hours or more. That's when overtime will kick in. HR estimates that will have a minimal budget impact. So, and bereavement time, which was the holdup, as I mentioned, is brought in line with what it does in the teacher's contract. In the support staff contract, it was 5 consecutive days for the death of a immediate family member, and it's been changed to 5 work days rather than 5 calendar days. So in the death of a spouse or parent, sibling, child, that certainly seems what a benevolent employer should do. So we would need a motion from the board to accept to approve of the support staff contract.
Any questions before we entertain a motion?
Questions come after.
I'm sorry?
Questions come after.
Discussion can come after, sure, but okay, so hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the support contract, please?
So I moved it.
Second.
We're going to say Dr. Kelly, we're going to say Jackie Prue. Discussion.
Mine is just a suggestion that a copy of that be sent to all board members.
Sure. I think that's a good idea. Thank you, George. All right, so hearing no discussion.
The contract will be online once it's all ratified, too.
Very good, thanks. So all those in favor of approving the contracts, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. I'm very happy that has happened. I'm happy that everyone
I was going to ask.
pleased with that.
I think you've asked every month.
So, moving on, so a VSBA report out, please. So Jackie.
Jackie Kelly and I attended the VSBA conference the 18th and 19th, or 19th and 20th of October in Lake Maury. And there's a couple of things I want to touch on. The keynote speaker and special ed work session I went to. And the keynote speaker was Alan Blankston, and he wrote "Failure is Not an Option. We are all in this together," and it won many awards, and I can give you his biography, but I don't want to go into it right now. But the importance of creating relationships with community, parents, students, and teachers it should be our biggest goal. Get people involved. When relationship trust is low, children don't learn. One particularly important thing he said was, poverty is not a learning disability, but if the conditions of poverty are not addressed, it can become disabling. And follow agenda of equity. Everyone gets what they need. Homework should be done in school. Homework should only be practiced because parents aren't taught what we teach kids now. Integrate real world into education. They will make the relationship stronger. Students need to own it. It must be relevant to each individual student. If it is not relevant, the students will opt out or act out. All employees of the school must be involved, and that means all the employees. Food service, custodians, all the employees, must be involved so students are connected, fostered, and measured. Parent engagement is most important for student-centered learning. Need to form high-performing teams with parents. Parents work on something, they like something, they create it, and then they own it. High-performing schools need to be paired with low-performing schools. He ended with, where there is hope, failure is not an option. So, and he spoke to us, 3 hours? And I could listen to him all day. And usually I want to fall asleep doing these things, the keynotes. He was very, very good. And then we went to, both Jackie and I attended this one, Rebecca Holcomb and Amy Fowler, Deputy Secretary of Ed, Rethinking Special Education. Last year, the district management group surveyed 8 school districts in Vermont. Their findings will be rolled out to superintendents and SPED directors soon. Basically, most schools are doing things the same way, and at times, they are not in the best interest of our students. Boards must look at how we budget our funds, how to create better outcomes, are we using best practices. Elementary students' educations must happen at the elementary school, not at the high school level. Many students are missing out on key core instruction by being pulled out of their classroom for reading, math, remediation, and other programs. This is counter-indicated because they are missing key core instruction that the teacher is giving at that time on something else. Many times, these students are receiving instructions from paraeducators, not highly skilled professionals. Schools are set up to be reactive, not supportive. These are Rebecca Holcomb's and Amy Fowler's words, not mine. When teachers feel they can't deal with behaviors, often students are taken out of a classroom and regular instruction is missed and they miss out. We need to look at reversing the role of paraprofessionals where they are working with general students after instruction is given and the teacher works with children with the special needs. Also discuss the high cost of out-of-district placement that costs most schools $100K plus per student. This should not be an educational cost since most of the out-of-placements are due to mental health issues. It's not an educational issue, it's a mental health issue, and it should come out of the mental health budget. And $100,000 is what it costs us, or more, to send a kid out of district. Best practices. It is indicated that any school, any student have a one-to-one paraprofessional coverage. They believe that when a student has one-to-one, they're not in the real world. Because when they're out in the real world, they're not going to have one-to-ones. And they're not going to be, when they have a paraprofessional one-to-one, they're not learning from Joey next door or Jackie on this side. They're not interacting. They're only interacting usually with the paraprofessional. And that's was my take on what I learned from, what was it, an hour? You got anything, Jackie?
No, but I also attended another workshop where a team from Rutland came and they discussed, last year they went through Act 46 and consolidated, and I was very impressed with what they had to say and would like to invite them when and if it happens to us. But they were able then, because of the consolidation, to put things in little pockets instead of just looking always at the whole picture. So a team of them looked just at the finance, looked at the budget, and initially they thought the budget was going to be overwhelming to do with all the schools that were involved. And actually, because some of them had similar ways of doing budget, they found it was very easy and not that much of an overwhelming task. And then when they put all their teams together and they overlaid all the budgets, they found ways to save more money that they hadn't even thought about before. So, I have this little angst when and if we all get together and that would be a budget that I wouldn't even want to look at. But they made it sound so easy. So, there's hope.
There was another one I went to, it was on community involvement, and I'd do that at a different time.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you both for going, and thank you both for reporting back. Yeah, that's excellent. All right, very good. Jim, we'll turn it over to you, please.
I do want to inform the board that we did lose a member of our staff this week. Helen Sanders was a physical
Therapist.
a PT, physical therapist instructor. She started as an independent contractor with us back in 1992, and then actually an SU position, I believe, in 2002. So she's been with us for many, many years, and it was a sudden death and her loss was felt throughout the district because she worked in so many of our different schools. So, and that is tomorrow. So Helen Sanders, I just wanted to take time to remember her here to those of you. I know that I heard from a few of the elementary schools on Monday that they were dealing with, again, some trauma. So that is contract, we went over that. So some questions from previous meetings. Smoke detectors here at Monument, the electrician has received them, and he will start installing them, and it is expected that they will be completed before the first of the year deadline. I also have the punch list from Jonathan Brush from EEI. It was a rather large list with lots of loose ends, but the list now is 4 pages, but I can report that it's everything on page 1 and 2. Most of these are completed, but they are sending a team from New England Air on November 4th to complete the majority of the items left here to complete. Our intention is to have it done by the end of that day. And there is some paving that still needs to go on at 3 schools. Is that correct, Jeremy? And that is, well, it was supposed to be done by the end of October, and that would have been yesterday, so I'm assuming no. But it is, you can, so we continue to monitor it, but there's, from last month's meeting, it's down to 4 pages. 2 of the pages, every item is crossed off of it, and we're looking at things like, replacing part of a rubber mat, cover spindle openings, repair paved edges at the tanks, at the propane tanks. That still remains. That's probably one of the things that need paint some blocks. So nothing particularly outstanding. So hopefully by your next meeting, we'll be able to report that everything is completed on that list.
New England Air will be coming down Saturday, and we'll open up the building.
Yeah, I have November 4th, is that Saturday? Yep, okay.
That's the day I scheduled for the...
We did receive a letter about the state participating in the state lead testing. Our understanding, this is a one-time test. We are going to participate in it. We don't have a date yet of when that's going to happen. What the state has pledged to us is that it was a carefully crafted statement by the state. If any findings come back from these lead tests, they have pledged to help us to find resources that could help us deal with the corrective action if necessary. So not actually pledging to pay for that. And I have Mike Cutler here, so I want to thank Mike and his team for their work on the video of the construction project. I had the link to that emailed to me this afternoon, so I will send that out to all of you.
Thank you.
And Mike, would you like to speak to when is up on YouTube now, available to see? Or?
It is on YouTube on our page, and all the thanks go to Beck. She was there to film and edit it all, so yes, it's there about 15 minutes, so
Very good.
Thank you.
Before you get too much further with the EEI, I happened to be here on the first day that the heat kicked on, and staff noticed that they were very comfortable and they were happy and everything was good. But to also, with your superintendent report, I have a question that I think might go to Jerry. I see the numbers are over the doors, but I haven't seen any of the red and green.
That's in my report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you're done.
It's actually the principals, so the principals have all reported to me that every school now has red and green cards available in every classroom. And as you can see through this room, all the numbering has taken place in the schools, though you're still waiting for white numbers for black
We
doors.
just come in today, so yes, the doors at Molly Star, black outside doesn't work.
So the report is, all the principals have reported to me the cards are all in place.
Great.
So is there some place that you've noted that they aren't?
Yes, the bathrooms. I was under the impression during the report that he said they would be in every room.
I'm not sure.
No, they're not in the
that
bathrooms? They won't be in
No.
smaller rooms?
No.
No, because the students don't know how to utilize
And a
cards.
bathroom door could not be locked, so we would never want that to be...
It was the adult bathroom.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I was under the impression it was going to be in every bathroom, or every room.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Very good.
We also want to talk about Act 46, though it's been reported out, but I want to thank the chair. I think you did a wonderful job moderating what could have been a contentious meeting, and it wasn't.
It was not.
Given the size of the crowd there, I was pleased with the size of the crowd, pleased with, I thought there were questions asked that were appropriate, and the answers provided information. I hope that everyone comes out and vote on November 7th, and that all board members are encouraged to go to the different floor meetings that are the night before. November 7th is also an important date for us in this district, besides the vote. It is the first time that the state is going to be coming down and completing the integrated field review for us. And let me talk about that for a minute. Many of us, myself included, went to 2 days of training in Killington earlier this year to learn how to go out and do this review of other school districts, and so we, because they're coming here, there's a team of 24 educators coming here on the 7th, and they'll be spanning out through all the schools in the district. They're here the full day. They'll be doing classroom observations, interviews with parents, interviews with community members, teachers, students, all getting input, and then we will get a detailed report back from them. Any of you that are familiar with the term NEASC, which is a review process that's done at the high school level, accreditation of high schools, it's a similar process. The state did a pilot of it with some of the schools last year, and this is the first time they're rolling it out to all schools. I'm scheduled to go on my review of another school district on the 21st of this month, and many of our other administrators have already gone to their obligation to do this, and we haven't seen what the report will look like yet, but we will be sharing that with everyone when we have it. So, two big events going on November 7th here. We are in the beginning of the budget process. Renee Gordon's department has been meeting with some of your principals already to do preliminary budget work. The timeline will really kick off after the 29th of this month. The SU voted not to hold their meeting on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and they will be doing an abbreviated meeting the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, which I believe is the 29th. They're going to do a 5 o'clock meeting for housekeeping items, any nomination forms that have to move forward, warrants, things like that, but no presentations or reports, and then they will adjourn that meeting and go into their first budget meeting. And that is key, because we need to get their budget set so we know what the assessment numbers are, to then begin budget meetings with the individual boards on one of those. But what is going on now is individual budget planning with principals and directors, so we can compile this all into one big budget. as Jackie said. So one big budget split 7 ways, so.
Do you have the backwards dates? For instance, when's the target date and...
So I want to say we have to be completed everything by somewhere around the 23rd of January, because that window of 30 to 45 days out before the town meeting, so that's our goal. So you'll be seeing a slew of budget meetings, and you should expect maybe 3 for this board during the month of December. That's it.
Great. Any questions for Jim before moving on?
No, just a comment. I think that budget training, just want to thank you for that. As a new board member, it's very informative, and Renee did a fantastic job. And I think that if anybody hasn't gone, I recommend
And
it.
anybody who wants further training, both Renee and I said we will do another session, or even if you can't make a session, we're more than happy to have you come in and we'll meet with you and go over those budgeting basics for you.
Cool. Great. Thank you. Okay, so that brings it to me, the chair report. Another quick word on Act 46 that I should have mentioned earlier. A metaphor emerged during the Q&A session that I thought was great, and that the Act 46 committee was charged with creating the skeleton for what the merger should look like. So those folks who have questions about what it is going to look like in actuality, that's the meat that needs to get chunked down to the skeleton. That might have been better before Halloween, but it still sticks now. The skeleton is the merger plan. The meat is what the new board will be charged with doing. So there are some questions about what that will look like that haven't been answered yet because there aren't the answers.
Since Halloween's over, you could do the turkey and
yes.
cactus.
Turkey
cactus analogy.
And a big wishbone on the 7th. But, so there's that. So the meat and the skeleton, keep that in mind. There's the perennial topic of the board retreat. And so because we had difficulty finding the weekend that worked and then evening time that worked, the general input from the board members was that we postpone the idea of a board retreat to after budget season, which will also be after the Act 46 merger vote, so we know what it is that we're dealing with. That may even have us push that to after town meeting day in 2018, so the latest iteration of the board at that point can deal with it, but we'll probably talk about that in future meetings as well. There was a great presentation from Dr. Leap and Ms. Boudreau and from our principals tonight. Thank you for that. And it strikes me from looking at it, I got a little preview yesterday, and Jackie Proof, thanks for asking about the pink and the blue on the improvement sheet, and that it really does look like we have some tools and we have some strategies in place already in some of our schools in the SU that have shown to work. And so we have the PBIS, we have the multi-tiered systems of supports, we have the data, we have the coaching, and what we've seen from the pink and the blue is that those schools that have been able to embrace those have shown the results with that. Okay, so in thinking about that, I try to put myself in the shoes of teachers and building staff, and I think that just, the pace of their job duties just doesn't end. It's always coming at them. I think of the students and the families that come through their doors that are challenged with things that, probably a decade ago weren't even on the table in terms of issues. And I just think that probably at the end of the day, how does a person have the emotional energy, the cognitive energy, the physical energy to do things that seem new in their instruction? I'm not insensitive to that, because the work that is already done takes so much of a person that how do you possibly shoehorn anything else into a day or into a mind to be able to do that? But with that said, we have these things that have shown to give results already. And so what can we as a board do to help that along, to help support that? It strikes me that the teachers have that primary responsibility of using these things that have been shown to work, and it strikes me that it's the principal's responsibility to help support the teachers in implementing those things, and it's the central office staff responsibility to support the principals in helping the teachers to implement those things, and finally it comes to us as a board. And so if we as a board can help to set clear expectations and to celebrate the successes that come along, and to hold everyone in that chain accountable for implementing these things that we know can work, then I think that's when we've done the job of this board, in terms of increasing those test scores and in terms of increasing the rate of learning for our students. So I wanted to put that out there as a focus of what I think we ought to be doing, in addition to budgeting and all the other stuff that we get to do, just finding ways to support central office staff and then down the line to offer that support throughout the entire system. So.
I have one thing off.
Sure, so we're going to go back to Jim. Go for it.
Question about the audit. It was the week of October 16th. The auditors were at central office going through their all our files and preparing for their report. So we estimate it'll be at least a couple of months from that date before we will have anything back to share with the board. So the week of October 16th, because some of you had asked about when that happened, they were here.
October 16th?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So I wouldn't expect to see much before then.
All right, so we have some FYI items that were enclosed. It's the SVSU enrollments, it's the budget status report for November, and then the BSD warning that was signed at the carousel meeting. So, could I please have a motion to move into executive session for the reasons stated at the top? We have George as the first, and we have Mary as the second. Thank you. Any discussion about moving into executive session? Great, so all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, and I do not anticipate us having any actionable items during executive session, so we won't come back. So, thank you, everyone.
I think you have to sign that.